Hi guys, welcome to the Mommy and Me podcast. My name's Samantha.
My name's Elizabeth.
And today we're going to be talking about grieving and the story of how we lost my dad.
Yeah, so we're basically gonna just go over grieving as a mom. No, not as a mom, I'm sorry. Grieving as a partner, and then for you, grieving as a daughter.
Yeah. So, I think we should just get straight into what happened and like what went down that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, do you want me to start off how I remember, or do you want to?
I think, so this was March 29, 2016.
Yes.
How
old were you?
I don't even remember.
I was 5.
You're 5 years old?
5. Yeah.
So this happened when Samantha was 5 years old. You guys can do the
5
math.
or 6.
I honestly don't know how old I was because I don't think that's like at the top of my mind when it comes to that. But for you, it's different because it was your dad.
Yeah.
I guess I'll kind of retell the story of kind of how things happen without getting too much into detail, I guess, and then you can kind of like say your point of view of how you found out things.
Okay.
So basically that day, my oldest son, and his dad went to a baseball practice. My son was in baseball since he was like 3 years old, and Fernando was always like a huge sports person. So that was like their bonding thing. And I used to always go to practices, and that day I was doing homework. I had an exam due soon. I remember that. I remember feeling that super overwhelmed. And then we were also planning Samantha's 5th birthday party.
Yeah.
Because her birthday, sixth birthday party.
Yeah, because the month from his passing, it
was a month before. Yeah, so we're planning her birthday party, and I remember it was a mermaid birthday party, and I remember us finding the like little mermaid things, and he wanted to use them as the centerpieces. So he was like, you go to the store, go back home, finish homework, do whatever you have to do, and just stay back with the 2 little ones. I'll go to practice by myself to get that off your plate, because I was like, I just don't have time for it. So I remember us both being like on the main street, and then him passing me and me being right next to him in the car. And I think for me it's super important to bring this up because I remember seeing him smile and him like just like going like kind of like later and seeing him super happy. And so him and little Fernando both took off, and I was home, and I knew practices, it had been a couple hours, and I knew practice wasn't over yet, but for some reason I started feeling like super anxious. He hadn't called me. Usually he'll keep me updated on practices, and I knew I was like so zoned into what I was doing that I was like, you know what, let me check on them. I don't know, I just had like I didn't think something bad happened necessarily. I just was uncomfortable for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to speak to him. And usually Fernando was the type of person, Fernando Sr., which is her dad, was the type of person that as soon as I called, he would answer. So I called him, he didn't answer. I texted him, he didn't reply right away. So I was like, okay, well, maybe it's during practice. But I still felt very uncomfortable, like something was not, like I just didn't feel comfortable. Something was in me was like making me feel nervous, but I didn't understand why. So I went to the kitchen. I started making myself dinner and preparing you guys food. And then I remember going back to the room. I was like, okay, he probably already called me. He probably already texted me. Checked my phone right away, and no text, no phone call. So then I started to get more anxious.
Something was off.
Something was off. Something was not right. So I kept calling him and calling him and calling him. After that point, I couldn't even eat. So I kept calling him, and he wouldn't answer. And then finally I called again, and then someone answered and said Fernando was in an accident. Mind you, Fernando Sr. and Fernando Jr.
Yeah,
both
so you guys don't know, my older brother's name is Fernando as well. So that's why she says Fernando Sr.
Yeah, so when they said Fernando was in an accident, I thought initially my son had gotten in an accident. I thought, you know, he got hit or something with having to do with baseball.
I thought the same thing when I heard that. I was like, oh, Nadu got hurt, and I was like, oh, he probably just broke his arm or something.
So when they were like, I was like, is he okay? And they're like, the ambulance is on the way. And I don't recall if I didn't wait for them to explain further or the call dropped or what happened. I just remember hanging up the phone and me thinking I need to leave. So I had Samantha and I had Justin, which are my 2 little ones, going to your grandma and saying, can you watch Justin and Samantha? I need to leave. Fernando was in an accident. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's wrong, but I need to leave now. And she said, yeah. And then I remember her uncle, one of her uncles was young at the time, him saying like, I'm gonna leave with you. So I get in the car. I start driving as fast as I can to the location, not knowing who really got hurt. I'm making phone calls, no one's answering. So then I call her aunt and I'm like, can you please get to the location, because this was kind of far away from where we were staying at the time, and saying, can you please get there, because she was closer. So she was like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know, just get there, figure out what's going on, and call me as soon as you get there. So I remember I was driving like, gosh, I was driving probably like 100+ miles per hour. I just knew in my gut something was wrong. I remember calling your Tia Maria, my sister. I remember calling her and crying and saying like, something's wrong, Fernando got hurt, and her saying, you know, sis, don't panic, he probably just like hurt his leg or something. And I'm like, I don't even know which Fernando it is, I don't know what's going on, but something's wrong. She's like, you're gonna get there and you're gonna see like it's something small, don't worry about it, I'll call me later. So I remember getting to the location, to the baseball field, and then finding my son there, and him saying, you know, that his dad had basically fallen and hit his head, and he had been rushed to the hospital. I won't really go into the details of that, what exactly happened that day.
Yeah.
But I remember him being rushed to the hospital, me getting my son, putting him in the car, and just like asking him like what happened, and he couldn't really talk. He was in shock. So I just didn't, like, I was like, where did they go? And I remember seeing the ambulance. He's like, that's the ambulance. I basically got there like right after the ambulance had already left with your dad.
He's been driving really fast.
So, yeah.
So caught up to all of that.
Yeah. So I remember like the hospital wasn't far away from the baseball field. So I remember getting to the hospital and like demanding answers, like what was going on. Little Fernando was severely distraught, like he couldn't even really talk. He was like crying and trying to explain to me what had happened. So I was just like, I was so confused as to what was going on or how severe the situation was. But I remember just like saying, I want to know what's going on, what happened. And then I remember I've seen them rush in with your dad into like the emergency area. And I was like filling out forms and like asking what's going on, like just trying to fill out as many forms, me thinking that the faster I fill these forms out, I'm gonna find out what just happened. And then I remember banging on the doors like, what's going on. And at that point I had called my sister back and I said, you need to come over here. It was Fernando Sr. It's bad, I know it's bad. And her saying, just calm down, he's probably gonna be okay, he probably just hurt himself. Because at that point we really didn't know yet. We didn't really understand what was going on. So I don't remember how fast it happened or but to me it felt like minutes later the doctor came out, but it probably wasn't like that. But I think that moment was all a blur to me. So I don't know, I don't recall if I called people telling them what's going on, what happened. But at that point his sister had already arrived at the location. She probably updated people. I really don't know. I don't really remember, but I remember the doctor coming out and saying, I'm sorry, we did whatever we could. And that was basically what I remember them saying. I didn't really know what that meant, so I just remember like going back, like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And like I remember them having to tell me like he passed away. Like I really couldn't like put those two. Like for some reason I couldn't grasp or I couldn't process what had just happened. So they had to physically tell me he passed away. I do remember calling her grandma and saying, I need you, or I need somebody to bring my kids. All I knew was I know that I needed my kids there with me, and that they needed to see their dad before his physical body changed. I just needed, because when I saw him, his body already looked like, he just looked asleep. For some reason he felt like at peace. He felt like he was like finally resting. Dad was like a hard worker. He was always working, always driving back and forth. So he was always tired because that man was a hard worker. He did whatever he could. He drove an hour and a half away to work and back just to be with us, just so he could see his kids sleep. So he was tired. I remember seeing him, like, his body was relaxed. He looked like he was at peace. But I mean, I didn't feel that way. I just remember now looking back at it, seeing it that way. But in that moment, I remember him like shaking him, like telling him to wake up, like that we needed him, like the kids are on their way, you need to wake up, you need to wake up, like you can't give up on us now, like wake up, and shaking him. And I don't know if my mom or somebody had gotten there already, but I remember them telling him to like stop shaking him. But I was just like refusing
to believe
that it had just happened. You know, I was in shock. And I don't really remember, because the rest is kind of a blur, but I remember the kids getting there and having to like sit down and talk to them and tell them like their dad was no longer going to be able to come home and that he was in heaven. And then Samantha will correct me right now the way I kind of phrased that or how she remembers it, but I remember like telling them that they needed to give him like their last kiss, and that, you know, their dad was in heaven now. And I honestly don't remember too much of that day. I remember bits and pieces, but I kind of feel like I blacked out a lot of it. And also I was just in so much shock that I don't remember things too clearly. So then Samantha can kind of say what her point of view was from that day.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. So when you got the call, I remember you being in the room, and then I remember my tita handing you the phone. Like, I just remember, like, I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but I remember her giving you the phone, and she was just like, oh, I remember hearing on the phone, oh, Fernando's hurt, and I was just like, oh, okay, my brother's hurt, like, he must have, like, hurt his arm, or one of his fingers or something, fractured it or something. And then the next second, you just, like, took off. Like, I just thought you took off. I didn't even know that my uncle took off with you. And then I remember within 20 minutes, my aunt had already came to like pick me and my little brother up, and we got to the hospital super fast. I remember seeing my little brother so scared like the entire time. Like, he was just like confused, like what's going on. He was really little. I think he was like 2 or 3. And I remember just grabbing him when we were like going to the when we were walking to the hospital. And then as soon as we got there, my mom, like, everybody looked at us. A whole bunch of my family was in the hospital, like, waiting room. And as soon as we walked in, everybody's heads turned, and something just felt really off. Like, the whole vibe just felt really off. So I remember my mom, like, coming straight to us, and she grabbed us, and she was like, I need to talk to you guys. And then I see Nando, like, crying, and I was like, what's going on? Like, this is so weird. And I remember her just pulling us aside, but, like, people were still around us. And she looked at us, and she was just like, your dad's gone. Like, you're not gonna see him again. Like, he's going to heaven and stuff. And I remember her telling us that we had to go see him to hug him one last time. And when we walked into that room, like, it was like, I had realized, like, my dad was gone. Like, there was no more seeing him. He just didn't look the same. He wasn't, like, you could just tell he was gone. Like, the color of him, he was like blue. He had like tints of yellow. Like, it was just really hard to see him like that. And I remember just hugging him and kissing him on the cheek. And then, like, seeing my little brother give him a kiss, and then we just like stepped out the room. And I remember walking back into the waiting room where everybody was at, and them just looking at me. And, like, it was just, like, the weirdest feeling ever. Like, everyone just felt so bad for us. And I hate that feeling. Like, people have to feel bad for us and stuff.
You felt like people were, like, feeling pity? Or,
yeah, like that. And I was just, like, it just, like, was so overwhelming.
Sorry to interrupt you, but when you walked into the room and I told you to, you know, hug your dad and give him a kiss, did you give him a kiss, or were you scared?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Justin was the one who was scared, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to, huh?
You know.
Yeah.
And ever since, like, that, when we lost, like, other people and stuff, I've been so scared to see them, like, once they're gone. It's really hard.
Yeah. I think So we've kind of explained how he passed away, and just wanted to like share that the idea of why we're sharing is to share that his death was very sudden.
Yeah, it wasn't expected whatsoever.
Yeah, super unexpected. The kids were, fairly young when it happened. Samantha was 5, Justin I believe was 3, going into 4 years old, something like that. The math may be a little off, because like I said, during that time, a lot of it became a blur. I feel for me, the reason why we're sharing this video and we decided to go off the topic, which we originally planned, was because this is going to give you guys more in-depth and understanding of where we're coming from and why we originally even started this podcast. What we're sharing is to share our grieving process. The main thing that I want to you guys to take away is that after their dad passed away, and I became a single mom from one day to another, I think now looking back at it, I was very angry. I became a very angry person.
Yeah.
I do remember like the planning process being super hard, and I was still going to school at the time and having to deal with that.
She still pushed you and she finished school.
I was working full time. Aside from that, I did take some time off. I think I took like 2 or 3 weeks off. I don't remember the time away from work, but that was just because I was planning his funeral and we didn't have any money to bury him. Like, this was super sudden.
So many fundraisers.
Yeah, so we didn't have any money saved. We didn't have any future planning done in case this ever happened. Something we never really saw coming or thought it would happen to us, because he was so young, I was so young, that we were forced to host fundraisers for the next like 3 weeks, like days prior to even us officially burying him. We were doing fundraisers. And so having to deal with that didn't allow us to grieve. We were just so focused on how do we come up with the funds to bury him. And I think that had a major setback for me, and took a huge toll on me, because I wasn't allowed to grieve as a mom. Seeing you guys going through it, I think I was trying to be so strong and not show my affection, or like not my affection, I'm sorry, show my emotions and pretend like I got this, we're gonna be okay. I do remember going home from the hospital and like just us crying in the car and us all sleeping together in the room when we went back, feeling so cold.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember?
I don't.
The room when we went back without him, it felt so cold. It felt empty. The room felt super dark, like something just shifted. Like when you see in the movies, like things start so bright and then just completely like dark, dims. That's literally what it felt like that day. And I think I was stuck in that phase for such a long time. And I remember like Samantha was in cheer. I never stopped her from doing that. Both boys were in sports.
I quit cheer like a year after that. Yeah, it was just too hard to continue. So, I regret it though.
You guys were all in sports. I was going to school, working full time, so we were out from the morning to like the late in the nights.
Because the boys' baseball took a lot of time.
Yeah, but when I was grieving, I wasn't even like thinking clearly majority of the time. We're gonna break this video down into 2 parts. One is gonna be explaining basically, we went over how he passed away. In the part 2 of this video, we're gonna go over what grieving felt like afterwards.
And how we dealt with it, and like where we are now.
And how we're dealing with it to this day, and how that's affected our lives and our relationships with each other, us as individuals, and what it's like, and what tools we've learned over the years.
This is about to be 9 years later since he passed too, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, so it's been 9 years. So the reason why we're even sharing is we want to show people, if you're grieving, if you're out there and you've lost someone and you feel alone, just know that we felt like that too, and you're not alone. This whole platform is going to be to help others have an outlet of escape or understanding and not feel alone out there. Yeah, that's basically the takeaway we want to do from this. So we're going to push back our other topics a little more and get into this particular topic. And then hopefully this will open up doors for everybody else. If you've lost someone, my condolences to you. Comment down below if this video is helping you, and if you're interested in learning more about deep conversations like this. And just know that it took a lot of courage for me and Samantha to even open up this wound.
Yeah, hitting up this topic. We've never even talked about it alone, exactly what happened that day.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty crazy. 9 years later, we're barely hitting it of like your perspective of what happened that day.
Yeah. And if you see us looking like this, we're recording from two different angles. We're going to break this video down to two parts. One is going to be explaining basically, you know, we went over how he passed away. In the part 2 of this video, we're going to go over what grieving felt like afterwards.
And how we dealt with it and like where we are.
And how we're dealing with it to this day. And how that's affected our lives and our relationships with each other, us as individuals, and what it's like, what tools we've learned over the years.
This was about to be 9 years later since he passed too.
So yeah. So it's been 9 years. So the reason why we're even sharing is we want to show people, if you're grieving, if you're out there and you've lost someone and you feel alone, just know that we felt like that too, and you're not alone. This whole platform is going to be to help others have an outlet of escape or understanding and not feel alone out there.
Yeah.
That's basically the takeaway we want to do from this. So we're going to push back our other topics a little more and get into this particular topic.
Yeah.
And then hopefully this will open up doors for everybody else. If you've lost someone, you know, my condolences to you. Comment down below if this video is helping you and if you're interested in learning more about deep conversations like this.
Yeah.
And just know that it took a lot of courage for me and Samantha to even open up this wound.
Yeah, hitting up this topic. We've never even talked about it alone, exactly what happened that day.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty crazy. 9 years later, we're barely hitting it of like your perspective of what happened that day.
Yeah. And if you see us looking like this and this, we're recording from two different angles. We're trying something out. Mr. Christmas. Sorry, guys. Our camera died on the other one. But if you were noticing throughout the video that we were kind of looking back and forth with two angles, it's because we're trying to figure things out or change things up or like for different platforms and for editing things. But
so this one right here that we're looking at right now is for TikTok.
Yeah.
And the other one's for YouTube. So
yeah, but our camera died out. So anyways, we really hope you enjoyed this part 1. We'll get into the whole actual grieving and part 2. There's a lot going on and we kind of started to do it a little later, but we thank you again for watching our videos. Please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, on ideas of what else you guys want us to talk about. Again, thank you to everyone who's already watched our videos.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. We just want to share our story and continue to help people. Yeah.
And again, not an easy topic for Samantha and I. So something like you said, we've never discussed before. So as we're discussing this, a lot of nerves came into this video.
Definitely a lot of nerves. It's definitely scary, like putting it out there,
Yeah. But yeah, guys, thank you again. We hope you enjoyed this part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. We are going back to the normal schedule. We didn't post throughout these past weeks.
I think it was 2 weeks. Yeah.
Because of the holidays, my sister was here from out of town, so we wanted to we were busy, basically every day.
Yeah, every day, up and down.
Yeah. So we hope you guys start to heal grieving or use this video as an outlet. Thank you again, and we'll see you on our next video.
Bye, guys.